So this is a really quick vlog video and the start of the vlog series again on the reveal of Pokemon Moon and Pokemon Sun, or Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon, however you want to say it. I've heard it said both ways. So yeah, Nintendo unveiled in a rather, let's just say, not spectacular. I mean, it was a pretty good video, but not reveal worthy, for lack of a better term. Basically, they unveiled the next generation of Pokemon games. Yes, this is undoubtedly a next generation of Pokemon games. In Pokemon Moon and Pokemon Sun, or Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. Again, heard it both ways already. So what do we have? Well, outside of some concept art and some speculation, not much of anything, honestly. All we have are the titles and concept art. But that's kind of ingenious in a way. Because it gets the hype machine rolling. Because we're all talking about it. It's like, I'm pretty, like, every major YouTuber, or pretty much any YouTuber talks about Pokemon to some degree, has already done a video where they said, Pokemon Sun and Moon are coming! And yeah, I'm doing it too, but much later than because I had stuff to do today, unfortunately. So these games are coming, and I'm just gonna give my own 2 cents on what we have so far. I'll leave links in the description for videos that bring way more to this conversation than I do. But still, these are my 2 cents, or 25 cents, or whatever you want to say it. First off, from the looks of the concept art that we have already, this looks like to be a very tropical region, or at least most of it's going to be tropical themed. Most of the early concept art stuff, or at least most of the early stuff we see in concept and whatnot, pretty much sets the theme for the entire region, like how we saw the Eiffel Tower for X and Y, or an early concept art for Black and White. We saw the New York City looking area of, damn, I'm forgetting the name, Castelia City. Yeah, for Castelia City. In this one, we're getting a look of a hotel-like area, which is obviously set against the beach, so tropical, in a tropical area. We also have some interesting look of vehicles, which is weird for the Pokemon series, considering the fact that the only major vehicle in the whole series that we have, just ignore that beeping, is that truck that Mew was supposed to be hidden under in red and blue, which turned out to be a total lie. Don't believe it, kids. So yeah, we have vehicles, and the vehicles that we have, one looks like to be an ambulance because of its Pokeball design towards the rear of it. So it could be a portable Pokemon Center, or mobile Pokemon Center of a degree. The next one we have is a standard pickup truck, and in the concept art image we have several Pokemon laid in the bed of the truck, as well as a driver and a little girl in the front of it. And finally, there's what looks to be a firefighting truck with the Blastoise sitting on the back of it, which is an interesting idea. I mean, we've already seen in the anime Pokemon used for firefighting duties, so it's interesting to see this in terms in the games. Of course, this doesn't narrow down the possibilities for Pokemon for this region or area. It just adds more questions than answers. Aside from the hotel I mentioned earlier, which some people are speculating might be a gym area, considering how heavily designed it is, I hope it's not a gym area because of how heavily designed it is. I just hope it's semi-important. But there's also one extra piece of image that's kind of shaded out, black building, that we don't really see much of except for a single cloud. Again, links in the description for people who are saying more and have actual visual reference for this stuff. So, what are my 2 cents on everything that we have gathered up so far? Well, we'll start with the names, Sun and Moon. I honestly hope that there's a space theme to this generation, mainly because we already have so many Pokemon that are in one way or another related to space. I mean, even dating back to Generation 1 with Clefairy, Starmie, and whatnot. And Deoxys is the very first Pokemon to be confirmed to be an actual alien, and pretty much every other Pokemon speculated to be an alien. So we could have some more alien Pokemon, or at least the legendaries for this generation could be somewhat related to space in a way. Like one could have said to fall from the sun, while one could said to be fall from the moon. Obviously, with the things like that, one's going to be a fire type, one's probably going to be a water type, just for the standard typing. I mean, it's not super mysterious like Black and White or X and Y. Just from the onset, we pretty much know what type these Pokemon are going to be. At least what their primary type will be. They could have secondary types that add some things like, one could be water, rock, and it's going to be fire, flying. But that does give it a super weakness to the other one again. But yeah. So, that's the speculation there. But there's also speculation about the whole story. Again, Sun and Moon. I mean, yeah, the games never exactly give an exact declaration of what the story will be, but it's interesting to think that the titles already can give us a lot to believe about for the games. Again, like I said earlier about the typings from the legendaries, as well as what their overall gimmick for the whole region will be. Now, if we don't have another tropical region, I just want to say I hope it's not like Hoenn all over again, in which case you have to surf everywhere because that'll be a major pain in the neck. I hope that they implement a kind of ferry system so that you can ferry around from major island to major island in case this is a series of islands and not just one big island again, which would be interesting to see. Other beliefs, as what we have images of a bird Pokemon. Now, everybody's saying that this is the next iteration of the Pidgey type Pokemon, essentially the bird type Pokemon that shows up early in the game. That's pretty much going to be it's almost guaranteed to be your second catch, your first catch for a Pokemon. If not your first, second, maybe third catch, considering there's only like 3 Pokemon in tall grass for a first area. It will be interesting to see if this is actually one of the starter Pokemon for the region. It will be an interesting change up. We haven't had a bird starter since, well, really, Torchic was more like a chicken than an actual bird, but you get what I mean. It will be interesting to see if this Pokemon turns out to be an actual starter Pokemon instead of just a standard bird Pokemon. We don't see a full design of it, we just see a wireframe design, as well as some other whatnots to it. So it's interesting to believe it could be a starter, if not a straight up bird. Outside of that, there's also the Pokemon that was revealed several weeks ago in Korokoro. Now, this is obviously a Generation 7 Pokemon, considering the whole data thing and the whole data mining thing that revealed Volcarona, Hoopa, and all of them. Now, obviously, this can't be involved in that because it wasn't data mined, so it's obviously a Generation 7 Pokemon. Now, some people believe it to be legendary. I say it's not. I say it's more along the lines of Lucario and Lucario and Zoroark before it. As this game is being a focus of its own movie. It's obviously has certain screen time with Volcarona in this case, but this is gonna be the last hurrah for the Gen 6 movies. Because the next movie is gonna come out is definitely gonna be a Generation 7 movie, and then we're gonna start the anime all over again sometime in December or January, and Ash starts his journey all over again in the region. That's just the way these things kind of go. Secondly, we have how much. So yeah, I don't believe Magnolia. I'm gonna figure out how to say this name eventually. Is going to be a legendary. I think it's just going to be a Pokemon that's super important for now, but later on will fall by the wayside and just become a standard Pokemon that might have some popularity behind it. Again, because Lucario and Zoroark before it were the focus of their own movie, but they were legendaries. And it would seem kind of cheap for this Pokemon to be a legendary and become the focus of its own movie in the generation before it actually appears in the game. It would just seem rather cheap and not very practical in terms of, the hype machine that the Pokemon anime exists to be. I mean, if it is legendary, it's going to be a legendary easily catching game. So there's that. There's also the fact that Generation 6 will set a precedent for a series by not having a third version. Now, what does this mean for the next games? Well, I believe that will set a precedent further on, because I do not believe Gen 7 will have a third version either. What I mean by that is Sun and Moon. You can't, unless you pull a crystal on this to focus on the Pokemon that is only tangentially related to the duo. Suicune isn't tangentially related to Lugia, but it's still not as important as those two. So unless you do something like that, you're going to just have 2 really strong focused legendaries and not have a third version. considering the fact that X and Y will be the first game in the series to not have a third version, it's a pretty big precedent for what the series is so far. Now, aside from that, what about Zygrade? The big question is, what about Zygrade? Okay, that's one of the big questions. Out of the big questions, it's probably number three, honestly. But yeah, what about Zygrade? That's a complete mystery at this point. Now, some people have pointed out that the core of Perfect Zygrade has 4 slots on it, and the remaining 2 slots that belong, and the 2 slots for color wise, one appears to be for Evital, at least in terms of color, one for Xerneas in terms of color, but there are 2 slots remaining that don't seem to have a corresponding, Pokemon, for lack of a better belief. So yeah, there's no correlating Pokemon for the remaining 2 slots, and some people have speculated that Zygrade will still be an important figure in Gen 7 and become the first legendary to transcend generations, which would be pretty interesting. I mean, technically speaking, the only other legendaries to technically transcend generations is Mewtwo and Mega Mewtwo X and Y in Gen 6. But that happened years down the line. This would be a legendary that would get major importance later on in a game outside when it was introduced, which no legendary has had before. It will be interesting to see though, especially considering the fact that the perfect form and all the other form designs of Zygrade would seem to go to waste otherwise if you don't use it in a game. Let's have someone modded in. And I know people have said they'll just release the Zygrade stuff as DLC. They've already announced way back when they have no plans to release major DLC for Pokemon. I mean, they announced it when they said they have no major plans to backwards compatibility the Mega Forms for new Pokemon into Pokemon Gen 7, from Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire into X and Y. So they're probably not gonna, DLC the Zygrade stuff. The Zygrade stuff is either gonna fall by the wayside, or it's gonna be given some minor importance in the third game that might come out during Gen 7, or it might be given some major importance in the actual main games for Gen 7, which will be an interesting precedent to see. So, that's pretty much all we have to talk about right now. If you're looking to continue furthering the topic, again, links in the description below alongside other stuff that might interest you tangentially. And finally, let me hear what your theories are for what Gen 7 has in hold for us, has in store for us. Again, really late / really quick video. Not gonna do much editing. Gonna be a lot of flurbs or errors in it. But yeah, so yeah, what are your ideas for Gen 7? What do you think? What do you think about the stuff we have so far? And how do you feel about the trailer? I feel semi disappointed / semi intrigued. And 20 years, major change. I look forward to November. Why I say November? Because they never made a major Pokemon release in December, and November is the latest point in Q4, or the fourth quarter of the holiday season. So yeah, November is probably when this game will drop worldwide, if not mid-October. So, till we get more information, see you then.